What happens when a group of ruthless bikers mocks the wrong man in front of his own town? You won't believe who this Santa really is. His past will haunt them like a ghost, and karma is about to deliver a message they'll never forget. It was Christmas Eve in the quiet town of Winter Ridge, where snow blanketed the streets and twinkling lights adorned every house and lamppost. Inside the local grocery store, the air was filled with laughter and cheer as families picked up last-minute items for their holiday celebrations. In one corner, a man dressed as Santa Claus sat in a wheelchair, handing out candy canes and listening to the excited whispers of children. The man, Edward Collins, had been playing Santa for the town for years. To everyone, he was a kind-hearted volunteer who brought joy to the community. What most didn't know was that Edward had once been a captain in the military, serving in some of the most dangerous regions of the world. A roadside bomb had taken his ability to walk, but not his spirit. After returning to Winter Ridge, he dedicated himself to serving his hometown as its mayor. Edward kept his past quiet. His wheelchair wasn't a symbol of weakness, but a testament to the sacrifices he'd made. He believed in humility and kindness, values that had guided him through life. For him, playing Santa was a way to connect with the community and spread joy. The grocery store buzzed with holiday excitement. Parents filled their carts with treats and gifts, while children tugged at their sleeves, eager to meet Santa. Edward's warm smile lit up the room as he listened intently to each child's Christmas wishes. His voice, gentle and reassuring, brought comfort to everyone around him. Yet, despite the festive atmosphere, a storm was brewing. The door to the store swung open, and in walked a group of bikers clad in black leather jackets, bearing the insignia of their gang, the Iron Fangs. The air shifted as their heavy boots thudded against the floor, and their raucous laughter cut through the holiday music. Heads turned, and conversations hushed as the townspeople instinctively stepped aside, wary of the newcomers. The bikers moved through the store with an air of arrogance, their voices loud and mocking as they grabbed items off the shelves. They were notorious in the region, known for their rowdy behavior and disregard for others. As they approached the checkout area, their eyes fell on Edward, sitting in his Santa suit. One of them, a burly man named Reaper, smirked and nudged his companion, a wiry man called Blade. "Look at that," Reaper said, his voice dripping with derision. "Santa's gone soft, can't even stand up to deliver presents." The group burst into laughter, their mockery echoing through the store. Edward heard their comments, but remained calm. He'd faced far worse in his life. His smile faltered only slightly as a child climbed onto his lap, blissfully unaware of the commotion. He focused on the child, listening to their wish for a new bike, and handed them a candy cane with a kind word. But the bikers weren't done. They swaggered closer, their taunts growing louder. "Hey, Santa!" Blade called out. "Got room in that chair for all the naughty kids? Or is that where you keep your coal?" Edward's eyes met Blade's, steady and unflinching. The crowd around them grew tense, parents pulling their children closer as the bikers closed in. Despite the escalating situation, Edward maintained his composure. He had dealt with bullies before, and he wasn't about to let them ruin the holiday spirit for the children. "Merry Christmas," Edward said, his voice calm but firm. "Is there something I can help you with?" Reaper leaned over Edward's wheelchair, a sneer on his face. "Yeah, you can help by getting out of here. Nobody wants to see a crippled Santa. It's pathetic." The bikers roared with laughter again, but Edward didn't react. He'd been trained to stay calm under pressure, to keep his emotions in check, even in the face of provocation. Instead, he focused on the children around him, reassuring them with his presence. "You should be careful with your words," Edward said quietly, his gaze unwavering. "Sometimes they can come back to haunt you." Reaper's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "What are you going to do, old man? Run me over with your chair?" The tension in the store was palpable. The clerk behind the counter glanced nervously between the bikers and Edward, unsure whether to intervene. The customers looked on in silence, too afraid to speak up. The bikers' laughter grew louder, emboldened by the lack of resistance. But Edward remained still, his expression calm and unreadable. Inside, his military instincts were kicking in, assessing the situation and calculating his next move. He knew he couldn't let this escalate further. not with children present. One of the bikers, a towering man named Tank, shoved the back of Edward's wheelchair, causing it to jolt forward. The sudden movement knocked over a display of holiday decorations, the crash startling everyone in the store. Edward gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white, but he didn't lose his composure. "That's enough," Edward said, his voice firm. "This is a place for families. You've made your point. Now leave." Reaper laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Or what? You gonna call the cops? Go ahead, we'll be gone before they get here." Edward's eyes narrowed, a flicker of steel in his gaze. "I don't need the police to handle you." The bikers froze, their laughter dying in their throats. Something in Edward's tone made them pause. It wasn't a threat, but a statement of fact, delivered with a quiet authority that commanded attention. For the first time, doubt crept into their expressions. "Who do you think you are?" Blade sneered, trying to regain control of the situation. "You're just some washed-up old man in a costume." Edward's lips curved into a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "You have no idea who I am." The room seemed to hold its breath. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado wavering. Edward's calm demeanor, coupled with the weight of his words, unsettled them in a way they couldn't quite explain. "You think you're tough because you can push around a man in a wheelchair?" Edward continued, his voice steady. "Let me tell you something. I've faced things you couldn't begin to imagine. I've stood my ground in places where the stakes were life and death, and I'm still here. Can you say the same?" The bikers fell silent, their confidence crumbling under the weight of Edward's words. The customers watched in awe, a newfound respect for the man they had always known as their mayor. Slowly, the bikers began to back away, their bravado replaced with unease. Reaper glared at Edward, his jaw tight. "This isn't over," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. "It is if you leave now," Edward replied, his tone final. "Go, before you regret staying." The bikers hesitated for a moment longer before turning and heading for the exit. The tension in the store dissipated as the door closed behind them, the sound of their motorcycles fading into the distance. The customers erupted into applause, their cheers filling the space. Edward let out a quiet breath, his shoulders relaxing. He looked around at the grateful faces of his fellow townspeople and smiled. The children, unaware of the danger, continued to approach him with their Christmas wishes. He welcomed them with open arms, his heart filled with gratitude for the community he had fought so hard to protect. As the evening wore on and the store emptied, Edward reflected on the encounter. He hadn't wanted a confrontation, but he knew he couldn't stand by while the bikers terrorized his town. He'd spent his life fighting for what was right, and he wasn't about to stop now. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing Winterridge in a soft, peaceful silence. The twinkling lights on the storefront glowed warmly, a reminder of the resilience and strength that defined the town and its people. Edward sat back in his wheelchair, a sense of calm washing over him. He had faced the storm and emerged stronger, just as he always had. And he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them with the same unwavering resolve.